Hi, welcome to How to Be a Humane Leader Without Losing Your Job. Join us for a deep dive into humane leadership tailored for today's fast-paced business world. Don't miss out on our weekly YouTube live sessions every Thursday at 8:10 a.m. Central Time, 10:10 a.m. Eastern Time, when we engage with our audience and tackle personal leadership topics. Listen to our podcast in all major streaming platforms. Are you a humane leader with a unique story? Join the conversation and inspire others. I'm Roberto Torres, a seasoned startup engineer leader, alongside Chris Ollerkin, a Fortune 100 IT leader. Today, we will be discussing how to help a top performer career as a humane leader. Hi, man. How are you?
Good morning. It's good to see you again, Roberto. I hope you're doing well.
I am. Thank you very much. With a lot of hot weather here in Mexico.
It actually turned cold here in Tennessee for the
Uh,
spring. I don't know what happened. They're actually talking it might frost, which is very rare. So,
um,
I'm looking forward to the more spring weather.
wow, in April. Okay, my God. Okay, this week's topic it is how we could help a top performer go higher in the ladder. Have you had this before?
Absolutely. And as we move as humane leaders move up in the organization's always a pyramid, right? There's less and less people at the top as you move up in the organization. So depending on where you are in your career, you're more or less likely to encounter this. But I certainly have had very good top performers who I knew would go on and do very well and potentially exceed where I went in my career. And as a humane leader, you need to be thinking about, I want to do the right thing by this person, even though it may hurt my career. If you really have a great top performer who's doing well in their role, it means that you're going to help them move along in their career, which usually means out of your team. And then at that point, of course, you've lost a top performer, a top resource, and you're probably going to have to refill that role with an average resource, or even worse, you make a bad hire and have a bad resource. So as a humane leader, you're going to struggle to do the right thing, to be the humane leader, right? Because it might penalize you. But when it does happen and you see these top performers like that, you know, do the right thing, be the right leader, and help them. Talk about what are their career aspirations and where and what do they want to do in the future and what's their view of the timeline. Because sometimes even a top performer has a bit of a unrealistic timeline, right? They've been doing really well. They're a top performer. They've moved up rapidly in the company. But again, and because of this, pyramid kind of shape, your promotions tend to slow down over time, right? So in your 20s, you can get them a little more frequently. In your 30s, a little bit less. In your 40s, less than that. In your 50s, gets much more rare. So depending on where they are, have a good conversation with them about what is their timeline and what are their interests, where are they going to go, and then do what you can to help them, because you're going to lose them if they truly are a great top performer. You're going to lose them one way or another, and a humane leader should lose them in a managed way, meaning you've prepared them for their next step in their career. You've discussed it with them to find the best next step for them that'll help them in the long term for their career, and you time that to hopefully help both of you. So in other words, if you don't help them, it's going to penalize you because they may quit, and now all of a sudden you're refilling their role in an emergency. So the humane leader wants to do all this in a very managed fashion. And I've experienced it, and it's tough, I'll tell you, because when you're losing that top performer, it hurts your performance, it hurts your team's performance, but it's the right thing to do. And I did it, and the gentleman I'm talking about has gone on and done great things, stayed in the company, has done great things, but boy, it was a painful loss.
Okay. Well, you nailed several key points of this. Indeed, we struggle because we're losing a team member, which will help the department get better and not only get better to reach the higher stakes on the reach the higher bar. Also, it is something that might hurt us because we're trying as as many people to rise within the ladder, and maybe this person might be our same level as a peer, or might be we will be reporting this to this person as our new manager. But I think one of the good things about humane leader is that we recognize that there are people who are faster, if you could see it as a race, than ours. Maybe we're at a specific pace, and these ones are at a much higher pace, or hastily. So I think that recognizing that it is something that a humane leader has to acknowledge and help these persons, because there are a few of them. And I will give this as an analogy. When we watch a basketball game from the NBA or a baseball game from the MLB, we're watching people who has which are super athletes, in which they play professionally at team sports that we maybe at our childhood aim to be, and those guys are the ones who has better skills at the things that we were having as a kids. So with this analogy in mind, recognizing that one of our reports has better skills and should have better skills and to have a better and much faster promotion is something that we should take proud of and help these kind of people getting along, because a non-humane leader, what it will do, it will stall their growth. What it will do is to put on setbacks to these kind of people so they won't grow, and we ain't non-humane leaders.
I completely agree. They will be jealous. They'll be petty about it. They may be concerned that their own career won't move ahead if they let this person get ahead of them. But, ultimately the person is in control of their own destiny. And if you treat them poorly, and many of our humane leadership topics are around this, right? If you treat them poorly, it's going to reflect poorly on you as the leader in the long term. It will damage your career in the long term. I was very fortunate, had very good long-term relationships as these folks that I helped get promoted moved along in their career, and ultimately it helped me because they were resources I could go to when I was having challenges to move the organization in certain directions. And that if you've helped this person in their career, they're much more likely to help you in the future. So even though they may have moved along in their career faster than you, doesn't mean that you can't rely on their help in the future, even if it's in they're in a different department or not necessarily in the same part of the organization. In general, the more you help people, the better off you're going to be, because you will probably need those favors in the future if you stay with the company in the long term.
Yeah, and not also in the company. Maybe this persons will leave the company and get to higher places. This happened to me 3 times in my work life. Of all these 3 people, one of them he went to Japan, and he is right now the VP of one of the most successful AI companies in Japan. The other has his own company, which it was we were in a different industry, but he right now the CEO of his own company, which is a company related to cars, and he has created some car technology. And the other one was the CTO of one of the biggest government companies related to banks in Mexico. So in the end, I recognized that these guys were running so fast that they were going to pass me. And what I didn't was to hold them back, you know. What I did was, hey, I talked with them on several occasions. I tried to pass all the knowledge that I had because I knew that there were going to be a higher ladder. And the thing is, I suddenly remember with the guy who went to Japan that I told him, dude, there is nothing more that I could do for you here. What we were at a startup, we were like 30 people at that startup. Uh, at this company, you could become the CTO, but I know that you have a bigger potential to be elsewhere, maybe at a big company. What I could do is I could help you become something more that you want. I have contacts in many different industries. I know many CTOs and VPs. What can I do for you? And he told me that he wanted to work for Microsoft. So what I did was to set him up an interview with an engineering director in Microsoft, and from there he began rising up to where he's right now. And one thing as a humility is that we got proud of these reports and how these persons go to the ladder and go to many different successes and which we feel proud. I think that is one of our traits as humane leaders, to be proud for other people's successes.
Absolutely. A humane leader is proud of our team's success, our team's future successes, and we are proud that, hey, we helped that person along. The inhumane leader is jealous and only is proud of their own successes and their own titles. And it's unfortunate. It takes many people to make the world go round, but that there are people like that. You know, and I've always been very proud of any of my teams, even if they didn't necessarily move up very high in the organization. But if you're having a good relationship with your team, you can have those honest feedback sessions about what their career potential is, what their next steps need to be. And when you have that rare team member who's really going to accelerate and move rapidly up into the organization and get to the very tops of the pyramid, which is, again, very few people, you know, you can help them because on occasion, those top performers, because they're so used to rising quickly, they sometimes don't always see their own gaps in skills. And you mentioned something, you know, where you were able to help impart some more wisdom. In my experience, that was one of the key things I did as a humane leader, is say, look, before you do that next step, X, Y, or Z, I would highly recommend you gain skills in this and this. Maybe it's budgeting, maybe it's finance, better understanding of finance vocabulary. Maybe it's a little better understanding of the vocabulary around project management and why the structure of project management is important for your next role, kind of thing. You know, have those discussions with them, because I'll tell you, if sometimes when their ego gets ahead of themselves, their jump for the next promotion can lead to failure. And sometimes it's very hard to overcome a premature promotion, right? You do that premature promotion, you don't, it doesn't work out as well as they'd hoped. They don't perform as well. They are not happy with their own performance. The company's not happy with their performance. And then that bar to move on and move up is so much harder to get over, that, you know, it's just something that you kind of have to help them see that you are very good. You are going to go to great places and be a great leader, but you're missing a few things in your toolbox. And so let's be honest about those. Let's do them. And then it's a win-win, right? Because they prepare, they get some skills. You have some time to plan for their replacement, you know, and everything kind of goes according to a plan and to a step. That way, you as the humane leader don't feel as bad about losing the resource, because, you know, anytime I lost a resource, I always felt bad when it was a surprise. I didn't have a lot of people who just quit on me and went to other companies. I think because I was a humane leader, we had enough conversations. I knew what was kind of going on with their career plans. But I'll tell you, I just, when you have to replace somebody and it's a shock because they quit, it is a big burden on the leader versus, hey, you help somebody get promoted, you help somebody move on to the next role. You can do it in a planned fashion and it is significantly less disruptive. So, again, it just shows when you do the right thing as a humane leader, more often than not, it has a much better outcome than the jealous, inhumane leader.
Oh yeah, and one thing to question ourselves is we're not as young as we used to be, okay? But
Especially me compared to
no, no,
you.
no,
I
no,
know
no.
I'm 10 years older than you.
No, you're only six, man.
Oh,
I'm
six. All
54 and
right.
you're 60. But the thing is, let's say, for instance, that we were in the mid-20s and we were rising so rapidly. What we were expecting maybe was a humiliator without not knowing these words to help us rise. And people who could hear this podcast, maybe there could be in both sides. Maybe they're a humane leader who is facing this, or maybe they're this kind of person which is rising so rapidly. So, what are you expecting from a humane leader? Okay, I understand that if I leave, the department might crumble a little, but you're a humane leader. Since I got this performance, is also not only because of me, because you're helping me grow to become someone better. And maybe that person, when rises, will become a humiliator because, as you mentioned earlier in the podcast, a non-humiliator, what it's going to do is going to avoid helping these people. And with that in mind, you don't want someone who could have the potential of becoming a humiliator, not being a humiliator because there is no help and there is no promotion, even though the recognition is there. So I think it's really, really important for both sides to understand that anyone to become a humiliator, and regardless of how fast this person will get to higher promotion.
Yes, yeah, you can, if you are an inhumane leader and you treat this person poorly, you may jade their perspective on the workplace. You may make them a bitter employee and then less likely that they will be a humane leader in the future. So there are downstream effects of how we treat people and how we impact their careers. And if we impact them in a negative way, their whole perspective of work life could be different. And that's how we sometimes don't fully understand our influence over others around us, right? And I think that our podcast is about thinking about being that humane leader. You need to take the time to reflect and think about that impact. And so you've got this rising star who's moving rapidly through the company. Well, you're going to have a big influence. Let's suppose that you're in your 50s and they're in their 20s, upper 20s maybe, or something like that. They've got a long road ahead of them in their career, and what guides their personality is partially influenced by the leaders that they encounter in their career path. So you got to do your best to be that humane leader and a role model for them, because it pays back many-fold, right? Because then they'll influence others, they'll be more humane leaders. The people that work on their teams in the future hopefully then are inspired to be more humane leaders. So I think it has that kind of roll-on effect that the better you are as the humane leader, helping this person with their career, the more likely there will be more humane leaders in the future.
Indeed, indeed. And with that in mind, what were we talking about this? And so the audience would know. Yesterday, one of my contacts, Mayra Gonzalez in LinkedIn, posted that she became the senior vice president in Europe for Nissan. regarding sales and marketing. And the story with her was that that when she was working with Nissan and I think she was a sales manager, the CEO was impressed by her results. So he invited her to his office. And when she got to the office, he sat down in his chair and she told him, "Excuse me, could you move along so I could take photos of this office and know what to do and what to redecorate when I become the CEO?" And he laughed and he smiled and he stood up and he moved along and she took pictures. And the thing was that some years after that, she became the CEO and president of Nissan Mexico. And then she began growing and she's a big top head and performer in Europe. So that's why we're talking about this, because we understand that people could rise much rapidly than others. Maybe there are people who could go steadily, but there will be people who will go like hockey stick, higher and very rapidly. So I think that and excuse me that I'm being redundant, we had to get proud of these kind of people, and when there is an opportunity to help them go get a better position, let's do it.
Absolutely. And while you're not doing it looking for payback or things like that, the reality is the more you help people like that, if you are in a challenging position yourself, right, where, hey, things aren't working out at the company I'm at, but you've helped this person, they're more likely to be able to help you in the future. So it's all connected. It's kind of that whole connection thing that if you do the right thing and help people, and you help people move along in their career, and you do it in a humane way where you're honest, you give them feedback. You've been giving them feedback the whole time, so you help them understand that nobody's perfect. They still have some weaknesses. Here's some things that would help you develop these skills for your next role. I do believe that in the long run, it will pay back manyfold.
Indeed. Great. So I think with this, we just close this YouTube live session. Thanks a lot, Chris, and thanks a lot to our audience for watching us, and we'll see you next week.
We'll see you in the next episode.
Bye-bye.